What's going on?
Hey there, how are you today?
No complaints. I had a lot going on. I'll be honest with you, my mind was wandering quite a bit. So I started running at like 3:30 in the morning. Just another day in the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, it's a way to start your week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so it's interesting. When I have a lot of things going on in my life and all great stuff, I always have it going, right? So I'm trying to find where's my calm and chaos, but I also want to have kind of the creative freedom and wherewithal that I can take it all on, right? But have my moments of more like reflection instead of sprinting all the time. So running is a necessary evil for me because I don't necessarily enjoy running, but I love what it affords me.
Yeah, it reminds me of when I was in a highly athletic mode myself. And back when Jesus was a tiny baby, actually. And because running is something that you can put it all on automatic, and then you can just kind of let it free wheel.
Mhm.
I used to do it in the dance studio, and there's a dance called the foxtrot,
Mhm.
and it's a very flowing, moving sort of dance, and all you got to do is slows and quicks, and you just do it, and your mind just goes somewhere else, and you can kind of get it all worked out.
Yeah, for me, as a softball player, it was really short sprints, right? So I
Yep.
was always training to have quick turn, be able to improvise, pivot, right? Like that's my training. So I've had to break my fixed nature of what I thought training was and what it
Uh-huh.
afforded me and kind of bring some new tools that would challenge me not only mentally but physically that I didn't really have to do in a big way, going through my sports journey. So running is that for me, and it really is the only time where my brain like fully shuts off. So
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. That is very cool. Well, what were you thinking?
today I kind of wanted to talk about, the championship routine, living into the life. We talk about this like work of art, but what does that really mean? And how do we
Yeah.
emotionally regulate all the aspects in the journey, in the process, and where can we help, structure it where it needs, but also not, right? So that's kind of one of the things I'd like to focus on.
Okay, well, that's really good. It brings me to something that you and I kind of like talked a little bit about last in our last conversation, which are the fundamental distinctions of strength, balance, and flexibility. Uh, you know, I, I used to think that that was just about where I learned it was I learned it doing yoga, and I learned that everybody's got one. Most people have two. Nobody's got all three. If you work on any one of the postures or the asanas, whichever is your weak thing, mine was balance. Then it will develop that with you, and it's kind of like rising tide raises all boats. The more I've lived with that in my life, so that's been in my life since my 20s. Uh, the more I see that that's just everywhere in life. And if you're in leadership, it's strength, balance, and flexibility. If you're a parent, it's strength, balance, and flexibility. If you're starting an organization or you're teaching, it's strength, balance, and flexibility. Uh, if you're at Jackson State and your name is Deion Sanders and you are moving somewhere, maybe to Colorado, perhaps, it's strength, balance, and flexibility. And the conversation that you're having with the people that you're training and that you're accountable to, like the team,
Mhm.
it's actually coaching them in strength, balance, and flexibility. So that's kind of basis of everything for me.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because one of the other aspects you highlighted in those three components was you're never going to be an expert in all of them.
Right,
Probably
right.
two of the three, sometimes one of the three, but really, and very rarely three of the three. And I think one of the things I reflected on was the balance piece.
Right.
I get this a lot. Hey, you're an all in type of person, right? You have this championship routine. You really have this visionary um, view of where not only you're headed, but where we're all as a community going into transition and financial literacy, all of these kind of cool stuff. And for me, it's okay to be a little unbalanced. And I always
Yes.
highlight that. And sometimes what's out there is, well, you need the work life balance. Look, everything in moderation, that's fine. But when you're an all in, lean in type of person, you're never going to fully have balance in any traditional norm of the definition that society puts out there. Right? So that's the one, if I had to struggle, that's the one I struggle on.
Well, the thing about it is when you look at it, balance is such an interesting kind of distinction because if you're an athlete, if you're a dancer, the if you need to move at all, if you're not sedentary like that, but if you need to move at all, the whole deal is getting yourself to the point where you are off balance and you are catching yourself as you're falling. So, running faster really means falling forward faster,
I like that. And
you
that,
know,
yeah,
and then just speeding up. You think about people that are just. Do you know who Abby Stein is?
yes, I do.
Holy mackerel!
For, for
Holy,
others, for others who don't know Abby Stein, you want to give a 2 second view here?
the one of the most awesome athletes I've ever seen in my life. Does it her way. Uh, has technology, has technique. Got herself under a great coach at Kentucky. Became the fastest woman runner in the world at 100 meters and 200 meters. Specialized at that. Has run one of the fastest 400-meter intervals on the 4x100 anybody ever.
Yep.
You wouldn't know what to look at her, and I'll tell you, this girl falls forward faster.
Yeah. Yeah, and that really kind of goes with my view of my championship routine on the all in and max out. So I
Mm-hmm.
live to fail. I just have
Yes,
learned to fail fast, right?
yes,
And to your point, and fall forward, fail
yes,
forward, right? So the way I when I speak to athletes, when I'm speaking to myself in the mirror, I max out every aspect of my life. Why? Because yesterday's normal is today's start. And for me, I want to know where that upper bound is in every aspect of my life, not just in the weight room, right? The weight room
right.
is an example that we all get to, experience physically, right? But that's what we need to do to our minds, to everything that we set out to do. So that's my view of kind of the all in max to fail every single day.
Yeah, I am so with you on that, and I think it's such a healthy point of view, Sammy. The thing about it is so stunning that people do not understand that there's a big difference between standard and ideal.
Hmm.
And we are always working towards the ideal, but you've got a standard that you set yesterday that you want to actually surmount that standard. You're stretching for a higher ideal than you had yesterday. I had an ideal when I was 19. I had an ideal when I was 34. I had an ideal when I was in my 50s. I've had to measure myself against that. And it doesn't always go up. Sometimes, I've reached a physical limitation and I can't do anymore. But I'll tell you, mentally, what I've discovered is that I can stretch the ideal every day. And uh, I just like the way you said it, fail forward fast.
Yeah, it's what I know. It's all I know, to be quite frank. I've tried to balance in the normal kind of societal view of it.
Hmm.
I didn't feel like myself. And it's always really me versus me, you versus you, right? In the grand scheme of things. But we always sometimes have to remind ourselves of that because you've got all these people around you that have some vision of, oh, well, You're the token. You're the one that's supposed to do it all, you know?
Uh-huh.
And their expectation is supposed to become your norm, and that's not true,
Well,
right?
that's exactly right. And it really begins to look, because we're looking from a place where generally elite people in whatever their field want to be looking. And the question becomes, where do you look? Where do you go to? Where do you come from? Maybe that's a better way of saying it. Where do you come from in order to fail forward faster? You know, because I think that extraordinary performance is an inside out proposition. And I think that, I mean, doesn't make it right, but my personal experience about it is, it isn't about whether I can actually be better than another human being, because somebody's going to come along and be better than me at some point. The question is, am I pressing myself to my limit today in this moment? Because the fact of the matter is that all that I have is I have this moment, and I have no guarantee of anything other than that. So the question is, am I pressing myself?
Yeah. And but that also goes into one of the areas of success, and you know how we were talking
Hmm.
about a will to power and success versus a will to fulfillment, let's say,
Right,
right?
right.
And I've heard a lot of great people, through my years that have said, well, when is it ever enough? Right? You change your behavior, you change your mindset to perform and not just win a national championship. You want the Super Bowl, then you want the ring, right? When is it ever enough? Right? You get your first, you have 100,000, you get your first million, then you get your first 10 million, and it's never enough, right? It's this ever evolving trying to capture this thing called success that never ends, right?
Well, yeah, yeah. It's a very interesting. That's very interesting the way you said that, because one of the things that I hear is that there's a couple of things. One is the press, and the other is actually surrendering. And when I mean surrendering yourself into something that is your greatness. Your greatness is your birthright. You stand in a place where it is yours, and it's not like people aren't going to take it away from you. It isn't like people are going to actually even grant it for you. But that is your birthright, and it is your duty as well as your right to fulfill on the the promise of who you are, and then you die.
Mhm.
So let's get on with fulfilling on the promise of who we are. And for some, it's not it doesn't measure out as a whole lot.
Mhm.
But in every place in life, there's you know can I actually be pressing myself in the area of being a better dad, of being a better brother, of being a better coach or trainer or teacher? And in order to do that, one, I have to press myself, and the other is I have to surrender into what is possible. So, you talked a little bit a minute ago about saying, well, when I look in the mirror and I talk to myself, good for you. People who are really good at stuff do look in the mirror and look in their own eyes, and they look into their own soul. And what they're doing is they are seeking to discover what is possible and then going and doing it.
Yep. And a lot of times as athletes, right? We compartmentalize,
Yep.
right? And that's performing at the highest level. That's also if you're going pro in another sport and now you're a corporate athlete, right? Sometimes we hide, right? We put these, let's call avatars on, right? To
Yes.
have a perception to others, right? That we have it, we figured it all out. But the one place, the one area where you can't lie is when you're looking at yourself in your own eyes, because you're the
That's right.
only one who knows 150% of who you are and what you are really about. And your
Yes.
reality will catch up if you're fake.
Well, yes, it's exactly that. And not only that, but it is an ongoing discovery, day by day, minute by minute, moment by moment. The truth of the matter is that I don't know unless I'm engaged in that internal conversation.
Mhm.
That's the part that I talk about that is the spiritual part. That is the part of me being in touch with my spirit as a human being, my spirit as a competitor, my spirit as a person who is a producer or who is executing like that. And uh, that's, that's not the place where your mommy's going to help you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not mommy and daddy's dream. And guess what? If you get into a profession that is what your parents wanted you to get the degree in, and you
Mhm.
committed to doing that, well, I could probably guarantee you it's not gonna be forever. It's not.
Well, what, there's kind of three levels of which we can actually find ourselves. Uh, the lowest level is at the level of pleasure or happiness. It makes me feel good to run, to jump, to leap, to turn, to spin, to do the thing,
Mhm.
to make the line, to do it and to do it in my case and do it in time with music, so on like that. So that's one. That's a level, but that is the level that is kind of that's fulfilling to me until I was about 11 years old. And then there's a kind of an adolescent sort of thing, which is has to do with, well, running, jumping, leaping, twisting, turning, doing the deal, whatever the deal is, doing the production and everything, and doing it not only better than I did it yesterday, but actually, doing it better than you do it, better than somebody else does it. And so that's at the level, kind of the level of, well, we'll call it success. We'll call it kind of that sort of thing. The thing about it is, ultimately, for the elite, that's not fulfilling. To win is not the name of the game. That's not what the game is about, because you're going to die in the end anyway. What there is to do is to fulfill, and to fulfill what you talk to yourself about, what you wake up in the middle of the night and you think about, what you get you out of bed and has you go run, what has you look in the mirror, has you say, this will be, that sort of thing. So if you're working at the level of meaning and fulfillment, you create a meaning for what you're doing, and you're working at the level of fulfilling on that meaning.
Mhm.
You can include being excellent, you can include being successful, you can find your happiness in it. But if all you're doing is working from the ground up just on your happiness, just because it feels good, probably not going to get anywhere above mediocre.
Yeah, and you kind of bring up a really good point, and it was something that an athlete recently just shared with me, right? Being an athlete and sports is a vehicle for your
Yes.
second game. And the early
Oh, that's awesome.
his name's Amobi. He's amazing, and his headspace around that is one of the major reasons why he's been able to transition so seamlessly into his work of art in his life. And
Yes.
he's pouring back into other athletes, and I think that's so important. We're not saying, hey, winning isn't important. We're not saying that you shouldn't strive for it. By no means is that what John and I are saying right now, right?
No, not at all.
But there's different views and vantage points that culminate into what winning really is. And it's all about passion, purpose, intention. And every day, knowing that you can do it repeatedly over and over and over and pour into yourself, pour into others in such a scalable way that you don't have to question you winning because you're already all in doing it.
Yeah. You know, well, you're a baseball player, so you probably know who Cal Ripken was.
I do indeed.
Yeah. There's an example right there. That guy never quit, never missed a game, never did not give his all to it, and everything else like that. Was a total master of his craft. He
Mhm.
owned third base. uh, and he owned everything about that, every aspect of it. And every day he went out, he was working on some other aspect of it. The same thing was true of Wilt Chamberlain. Every year he came back and he had a different shot. He had a different way of going about it. I remember one season, all he did was he did his free throws all underhanded and he was going to get that perfect, but every year it was just a new thing. And when you take a look at the really great ones, athletics are such a good model for it, but it happens in business. You take a look at the people that you admire who are extraordinary in their ability to kind of distinguish what it is to be a human being. Brene Brown is somebody who comes to mind for me. Of she never stops. She never stops. There was never a day when she went, okay, there, I'm done. I'm toasted now, and all good. No, always discovering something new, always discover and fascinated by it, and really doesn't care whether you get it or not, but has developed a way of explaining it to you so that if you're interested, you can use it and you can kind of accommodate it into your life. So that's for me what the really good ones, the giving up of being special in the interest of surrendering into how extraordinary and great you really are.
Yeah, and I think there's a big shift happening in the sports industry across being more than an athlete.
Yes.
And there's an environment which is putting others in a different limelight that, quite honestly, the older generation didn't have, right? To be a sports athlete at the highest level while also a businessman or woman. And you can do both.
Well, and look at the cost you pay if you don't learn the lesson in time. Mike Tyson comes to mind. Here's a guy who made and lost $300 million. And there was nobody on the planet who did what he did as well as he did it when he was doing it. He was something. But now he's had to discover other things to do. And he actually has had to learn, in spite of himself, he's had to learn. And life has kind of came and slapped him and told him, you better learn how to kind of take care of yourself and take care of business, buddy, and stuff like that. And he's turned into actually quite a good little actor. Who knew?
Power it
Yeah.
off.
And I think one of the other things that is interesting to me is I'm traveling across the country talking to a whole host of athletes from the high school, NCAA, and pro levels. And I always get, well, you know what? Not everyone's a Kobe. Not everyone's a Jordan or a Jeter or an Alex Rodriguez. They don't get the same deals, right? Only 1 to 5% get these NIL deals. And I challenge that thought. Some, obviously, right? You are the brand. So their brand is big and magnified given the sports they play and the performance they put out and the seats that they fill. There's no doubt about that. No one's debating that. But in business, you can either wait for things to come or you can go after it. If you know who you are to the core and who you are beyond the game and what is your why, you can go garner the right aligned brands to create the business that you want and parallel path it. So don't tell me there's no NIL deal. No one's just going to hand it. And if you think an agent is responsible for doing that, and then you get mad that they want to take 30 or 40%, well, they're creating your brand. Why is that? They can help harness it, but only you can determine who and what and how people articulate you as the brand. Either you're going to narrate your own story or someone else will. Okay? So I'm pretty passionate about this one. So
Yeah, well, you're right on about that. I'll tell you, when you take a look at it and somebody says to you, looking you right in the eye, and is not ashamed of themselves when they say, well, not everybody's Kobe. They're not saying anything about Kobe. They're saying everything about themselves.
of course.
The fact of the matter is, Kobe was you be you. And he was relentless about you be you. That was at the heart of what his disagreement was, shall we say, disagreement was with Shaq, because he, one of the very last interviews that he ever gave, he was asked on stage, what would Shaq have been if he had really applied himself, fully, completely. And he didn't even hesitate for a second. He said, the greatest of all time. And he wasn't. Now, he was great. He was great, but he wasn't who Kobe knew he could be. And Kobe was disappointed that he wasn't being him, wasn't being everything that he could be. So I'm for that kind of a relationship. And when people say to me, well, not everybody can be Kobe or Michael, or for that matter, Elon Musk or something like that, all you're doing is telling me, you're just saying, oh, because I'm lazy, I'm trying to create a little space for myself with you, and I'm saying this, and I'm hoping that you still respect me, and I don't.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because it's a normal tendency for human beings to want to compare and contrast. I mean, think about it. When you go into the store, you compare versus the next best alternative. When you're in the corporate environment and you're putting a product, a new introduction, well, what's the next best alternative, right? It is ingrained in everything growing up, between the choices we make, between the environment around us on their opinions on things, and all the way to the professional realm. So you have to inherently break that fixed nature, right? That pattern in your brain that connects that if I see this and I see that, it means this, right? It's an interesting one for me because I'm all for aspirational um, targets. I'm all for looking up to someone, but you are the brand and you can
Yeah.
emulate, right? So I'll give you a good example, John. You'll love this, right? So I recently saw a couple of football players give an interview, and they said, "Hey, one of the best players had said in the football league, you need to learn basketball." And they're all like, "What are you talking about? We're playing at the NFL level. Like, what do you mean?" Think about the best football players that can juke and get by tackle after tackle. If you really slow down their moves, they have practiced basketball. Why?
Yep.
Because of the movement. They've applied different sets of skill sets and they've emulated the Allen Iversons, the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans of the world, the LeBron James of the world, and they applied it into this new package. Think about that. There's a lot of power in that.
I think that's just so, I think it's really brilliant that people actually have that survive through in their thing. Because when you see a kid and he's playing basketball, this is little Bobby Smith who's playing basketball. He's 11 years old. If you actually listen to his self-talk, he isn't Bobby Smith. He's Michael Jordan. He's LeBron. He is actually doing the model of what it is. And he's growing like a weed in terms of his skills and his capabilities. And he's always pressing himself, and it happens in I have a granddaughter who, when she was 9 years old, she decided she wanted to be a prima ballerina. And she started working on it, and her mother was her choreographer, her mother was her teacher, but she was her own coach.
Mhm.
And she did what she needed to do. By the time she was 15, 16 years old, she had won 2 world championships as a ballerina.
Mhm.
And then she was now a prima ballerina. And it became what's next. She's now like 23 or 24.
Mhm.
And I asked my daughter, I said, where's Juliet? She said, oh, she's in Prague. And I said, what? What is she doing in Prague? Oh, she's in a John Wick movie with Keanu Reeves, and she's playing a ballerina assassin.
Wow.
And I'm going, what? How cool is that? But she's actually just kind of like looking out and going, what's next? The real question is, what's next?
Yeah. And it goes into one of the biggest things that I stress about my championship routine, my what am I living into? What's my purpose? What's my passion? Right? And how do I regulate that emotionally? Well,
Uh-huh.
one of the things that you said, I'm telling you, it hit me really hard, and I live with that is I'm only able to get through to those that are ready to receive it. And sometimes in the room, that's 5% or 10%. So now I already know that. That is a fact. There's 100 people in the room. I am very fortunate if there's 10 in that room that is not only ready to receive it, implement, improve, and then pour and scale to other people. Okay. So now that I've got that in my head, that next part of my championship routine is, well, hold on a minute. We always think about the light at the end of the tunnel. That drives me crazy. I actually hate that saying, the light at
Mhm.
the end of the tunnel. I want to run in darkness. I want to talk about the journey, the process, the different ways that you can get through it, not the end result. I am big on that. And the way I talk about it to other athletes is, hey, so when does a new day start? At midnight, right?
Yeah,
Is it light or dark?
dark.
Okay. So you mean to tell me that every new day starts in darkness and then ends in darkness? But yet all we want to focus on is the in between period of light? Or should you learn how to start in darkness, go through light, and understand that it may come with some other darkness on the other side to get you to the next light?
Wow, that is brilliant. That is brilliant because of a lot of things. I really like the thought that you put into that. But the thing that I really like is what it suggests is that it always begins in discovery.
Indeed, there you go. That's the high level of it. The discovery period. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really good. It always begins in darkness. It always begins. That is awesome. That is awesome. What a great thought that is. And it's the same. It's the same. It really doesn't matter. We're human beings and we're social beings and we do dozens of things and we all have specialties and everything else like that. But regardless of what it is, it's all about discovery and it always begins in darkness.
Exactly. And if anyone says, "Well, oh, don't worry. We'll get to that during the day." No, 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 no.
Uh,
This is the all in lean in. Don't do tomorrow what you can do today. I'm not going to be behind. I'm going to set the pace. I'm going to get you so uncomfortable with that pace where you can't even fathom at the speed that it's going. And it should make you uncomfortable because I'm going at a speed that's uncomfortable for myself, but I'm leaning into that. I
yep.
understand that I'm going to learn. And for me, I want to go fast. There's this whole methodology that, oh, take your time, do this right, so then you don't have to do it again. Well, hold on a minute. If you go quick and you go all in, lean in, and you fail fast, now I'm already on 10 things that someone else hasn't even endeavored to try.
That's exactly right. You know, John Wooden, one of the great coaches and one of the great human beings of all times, uh, would say, "Make haste slowly." It's very interesting about when you really get your rhythm going and you get your timing going and whatever you're doing, time slows down to accommodate you rather than you playing catch up to time. So that's what you want to do. You want to be in action in such a way, you know, there's never such thing as too early. There's no such thing as being too prepared. There's no such thing as being too well rehearsed or practiced. That's what you do. And when you go to bed, what that little 8-year-old boy does when he goes to bed and he takes his glove and his ball to bed with him? What do you think he's doing? He's playing ball, and life is a play ball deal. You don't want to be the umpire, you want to be the player.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and I think this is probably a good place to end here, right? So as athletes, as corporate athletes, we always, focus on the physical skill sets, right? The going into the gym, the going the extra mile, being first in, last out, the physical controllables. But there's mental controllables too.
Right.
There's intentional choices and intersections every single day that you
Right.
decide, right? And the biggest thing for me, if I had one major takeaway on, hey, Sam, what's your championship routine? I know your why now, right? So, what's your championship routine? For me, it's pretty simple. Whenever I get the opportunity, right, to go towards ambiguity, whenever I get the opportunity to start something before I'm ready, whenever I get the opportunity to do more than I think I am capable of, whenever I have the opportunity to change a behavior set, to challenge thinking, to creatively go into a space that I have no experience, that is when I know I am right where I need to be.
Yep. Yep. That's really good. I have it in as a series of kind of a small kind of little things that keep on going for me. One of them is wake up. I don't think that there's anything polite about great performance. It's wake up, and then it's show up, and then it's step up, and then it's shut up, and then it is cowboy up.
Yeah. Right. And you always have to have your vision, right?
You do.
You can't just be a 3-6, and corporate America does this often, right? What's your 30, 60, 90-day plan?
Oh, please.
Listen, I get it. I understand the structure, but I want to know what's your 5, 10, and 15-year horizon. I don't want your plan. I want your horizon. I want
Yeah.
to know what's going to happen when it rises and sets. I want to know who's going to be in the right place. I want to know who wants to step up. And I don't care if they don't have the degree on paper that you so like to have. Just because you're an engineering organization doesn't mean you can't have a creative artist in the mix. Quite honestly, that's probably what you should have.
Probably that's probably what's there that you want to, like you talked about, if you're a football player, you better be playing basketball. You better be cross training somehow. And if you're an engineer, you better be cross training into art for sure.
Exactly it. Yeah, cross training is very big for me across the board, and
Yep.
honing in on critical skill sets and different behaviors relative to the different training styles too. Because football is great in basketball for posting up, having good defense, having a
Right.
presence, right? And there's a lot of synergy on soccer to other sports as well, right? And how you run your systems, right? How you have your walls, lines of defense, right? In baseball, right? When you go for your single versus when you need a home run, and what
Uh,
it's going to take, and what resources do you have to put in place if all you're putting in your organization are home run chances? Well, guess what? The best home run hitters, they strike out a lot. So you have
they
to be
do.
okay with that. You have to have the appetite for that. And that's okay. If that's what you culturally want to set up and you want the step change, leapfrog type of approach, that's a choice. You get to do that.
Yeah, it's what's going to be the greatest contribution in the moment. What is the greatest? You're constantly asking yourself, where can I contribute to the greatest degree in the moment? So in this very moment, what is called for?
Yep.
It's definitely about what is called for. So that's we come to these conversations, and what I love about them is that they're not planned, and yet you and I have both been rehearsing for this all of our lives.
It's crazy, right? Yeah, and
It is crazy.
it's gonna be great because we're gonna really start digging into the human side of it, right? So we talk about like human capital, and we talk about the society views of things and how you break through that and grow to your life like a work of art, right?
Yes.
Um, that's where we're at, gang. I mean, that really is what we're trying to get you to challenge yourself. I do it every day. Every time I talk to John, I think about something differently. So you need to surround yourself with others who demand that of you.
Yeah, it's a vital part of the virtuous practice.
Yeah,
of actually being the extraordinary human being that you are designing yourself and unfolding yourself into. So the question is, what are you living into that's worth living into? Or, somebody, my coach once said to me, are you living a life worth living?
of course. Yeah. So I'm excited because, next week I really want to hit on the human behavior side of the house.
Okay, cool.
Why people do what they do, and how do you influence those who are no before yes people, who are
Yes.
yes but people versus yes and people, right? And how do you drive towards a common vision when everyone else has a different vision or purpose as to why they're at the table?
Well, that's fantastic. I have a lot of thinking that I've done around that,
Great.
which the title of that talk for me is "What is your relationship to no?"
Oh, I like that. I like
Yeah.
Well, I think it really is gonna help a lot of people, obviously me in particular. I'm selfish like that, but
Are you kidding me? Why would we be doing this except for ourselves?
no, it's really a lot of people are gonna benefit, and, I look forward to sharing more, and as ever, you continue to be one of my faves, and,
Well,
it's an
I'll
honor.
tell you, you blow me away over and over and over again. Your spirit, I don't mean to be even touch on religious at all, but I'll tell you that your spirit is the God that's inside of you, and you're honoring that. And it is just an honor to be with you.
Well, as ever, you are the best. I really appreciate your kind words, and, on next time, we'll talk about the human behavior side of the game, so it'll be pretty fun.
Okay. Okay. Take care, my dear.
Alrighty.
Bye bye.